Thomas and Jackson are good friends. Thomas made no more remarks about Jackson, and Jackson was happy that Thomas would shunt his coaches into place for him. During the busy season, all of Sir Topham Hatt's workmen were busy cleaning the coaches. All the seats and doors have been refurbished and shiny once again. Later that day at the sheds, Jackson wanted to talk to Thomas. "I must say, Jackson," Thomas said wearily, "I'm sorry that I was rude to you yesterday." "No worries, Thomas," said Jackson. "I accept your apologies." Then Thomas had a cheeky idea. "How about we tell ghost stories to Gordon and James?" "That's a wonderful idea," said Jackson. "It's definitely getting dark outside. We must go home." That night, once Thomas and Jackson got home to the sheds, they started to have cheeky ideas. "Should we tell ghost stories?" asked Emily. "Of course," said Thomas. "Well, if the ghost story doesn't scare in our nerves," said Gordon. "Then we would have some fun," said Thomas. "Quiet, Thomas," said James. "The big engines are talking now." Then Thomas started to tell. "It's the story of the runaway flying kipper in the night," said Thomas. "How scary is this?" asked Emily. "I hope it's not too scary, Thomas." "Me too," said James. "I'm scared of ghosts too. Same with Emily." "Settle down, everyone," said Jackson. "Thomas will tell us a story in a minute." And soon, Thomas was ready for the story. "Long, long ago," said Thomas, "there was the flying kipper train, with the brake van in the lead, with the ghostly, troublesome trucks behind him. And you would know the brake van is moving by himself, and they disappear into the darkness. And he must be looking for an express engine," said Thomas. "The brake van is cross, and he is going to hunt you down." "That's a scary story, Thomas," said James. "Yeah, it is scary! It is scary!" gasped Gordon. "Well, there won't be work for us now, I expect," said Jackson. "But take my advice," said Thomas. "Be on your guard! Be on your guard!" Jackson said in a ghostly voice. "Everyone," said Gordon, "let's leave the shed. We've got work to do, and we won't be having any nightmares," said Gordon. And they puffed away from the shed. When Thomas arrived at the station, he saw Gordon with the express. "Hello, Gordon," whistled Thomas. "Look out for the ghost engine." "There is no such thing as ghosts, Thomas," said Gordon. "Yes, there are," said Thomas. "But be careful. When you see the scary brake van with a driver driving him, you will be frightened because the brake van has an engine now." "No, it doesn't," said Gordon. "Thomas, Toby needs you at the quarry right away." "No problem, Gordon," said Thomas. "I'm sorry, I gotta go now. Toby needs me." So Thomas was called away to the quarry to work with Toby. While Thomas was gone, James buffered up to the flying kipper. "Who left those there?" snorted James. James tried to pull, but the kipper wouldn't go. "Hold back! Hold back!" they giggled. "All right, James, let go!" James pulled as hard as he could, but then suddenly, the coupling snapped, and the flying kipper rolled away. That night, Gordon had the evening express train. Then suddenly, Gordon spotted strange and scary shapes. Gordon was feeling worried. All around was the mist. "What was that?" gasped Gordon sadly. A line of freight cars were groaning past, with no engine pulling them, and nothing loaded in his train. Gordon was frightened. "It's the ghost train!" he shouted. Picking up steam, Gordon was going faster and faster. Gordon was going faster and faster, and the passengers were having a very uncomfortable ride. Ahead was the station. Gordon's driver applied the brakes, and Gordon screeched to a halt, just in time. Everyone was very surprised and cross. Gordon puffed sadly away to the shed. As Gordon reversed into the shed to get some sleep, he heard a voice. "Gordon!" Gordon was shocked. "Oh no! Please stay back! Oh!" But it wasn't the ghost. It was Sir Topham Hatt. "Oh, hello, sir. Looks like it is a fine evening, isn't it?" "No, Gordon, it isn't," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I've heard complaints from your passengers, and what has gotten into you?" Gordon told Sir Topham Hatt about the ghost story. "This is what Thomas described. Freight cars with no engine pulling them, and brake van having a driver gliding through the night, sir." "I'm aware of that," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Just be thankful those were James's fish train." Then he heard a moaning noise coming towards Tidmouth Sheds. "They've come back for me! They've come back for me!" stammered Gordon. "Please, somebody help!" But the engine who was pushing the train appeared. Thomas, pushing the flying kipper. "Jackson," said Thomas, "those were stopped on my branch line when I came back from the quarry." "Thomas," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Hello, sir," said Thomas. "These are the cars that James left behind." "Oh, Thomas," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Now you've got Jackson telling ghost stories. So, who was pulling these freight cars? And they suddenly come loose and ran away from you?" "It wasn't me," chuckled Thomas. "It was James." "James!" shouted Sir Topham Hatt. Sorry, sir?" James asked nervously. "What has gotten into you, Jackson?" said Sir Topham Hatt. "I don't understand." "Well," said Jackson, "the main line is reopened this week." "It is?" asked Gordon. Yes, it was, said Jackson. Who's got reopened branch lines? We have reopened branch lines, Jackson, said Oliver. My coach Isabel and I were working splendidly together yesterday. And I delivered the mail right on time, finished Percy. Sir Topham Hatt was relieved. Now the main line is reopened again, said Sir Topham Hatt. James and Gordon, you're free to use the main line from now on. James and Gordon smiled. All Sir Topham Hatt's orders were arranged, and the railway was back to normal for the rest of the night. Thomas was glad he had his own branch line back. But he was sad that he wouldn't get to see Jackson as much. That's alright, said Jackson. I can whistle every time I see you. That's alright, said Thomas. I've got work to do. Good night, said Thomas. And Jackson tooted back.